18 years old. That's how long I lived in the Mo family before they threw me out like garbage, and it took them exactly 4 minutes to do it. 4 minutes to unmake 18 years. Mo Chen has no talent. My father said those words without even looking at me. He was staring down at a tablet on the family hall's long obsidian table, scrolling through some quarterly report as if my entire existence was a line item he was closing out. He can't even awaken a basic elemental affinity. Keeping him here is a waste of the family's resources. My mother stood beside him, arms folded, her expression carefully arranged into something between disappointment and resignation, as if she'd rehearsed this moment in a mirror. She didn't argue, she didn't even flinch. My little sister Mo Ling, who had awakened a top-tier fire affinity at 12 years old and had been treated like a small deity in this household ever since, didn't even glance up from her phone. She was scrolling through congratulatory messages from her tutors about her latest sparring evaluation. My banishment wasn't even worth pausing her thumb for. I stood in the middle of the family hall, holding a single suitcase that the maids had already packed for me before the meeting even started, because of course they'd known. Everyone had known before I did. The decision had been made in some boardroom weeks ago, and this family meeting was just a formality, a courtesy extended to the furniture on its way to the dump. I didn't say a word. What none of them knew, what nobody in this entire city, in this entire province knew, was that 3 years ago, alone in an abandoned testing chamber in the sub-basement of the estate that the family had long forgotten even existed, I had already awakened. Not a basic affinity, not even a top-tier one, the kind that made families like mine throw parties and hire tutors and parade their children in front of prospective marriage partners. An S-class esper core, the rarest classification in the entire regional esper registry, rarer than what my sister had, rarer than anything my father, the head of a mid-tier trading family clawing for relevance among the province's great houses, could have possibly dreamed of holding under his own roof. I remember the exact moment it happened. I'd snuck down to that dusty testing chamber out of boredom more than hope, half expecting the ancient equipment to spit out the same result it always had. Null, unregistered, nothing. Instead, the resonance crystal at the chamber's center had shattered from the sheer overload of energy pouring out of me, and every gauge in the room had spiked so hard the readout screens simply died. I sat there on the cold concrete floor for almost an hour afterward, shaking, not from fear, but from finally understanding, with perfect clarity, exactly how badly they had misjudged me. And in that same hour, I understood something else. Something about my family that broke a part of me quietly, permanently, without any drama at all. They didn't love me. They had never loved me. They loved what I could produce for them. Status, alliances, leverage, an S-class core in the hands of a worthless second son who they'd already half decided to discard wasn't a blessing to people like my father. It was a liability. A secret asset to be packaged, leveraged, and sold off disguised as a strategic marriage or a corporate merger the second it became convenient for them. So I said nothing. I let them believe I had nothing. I let 3 more years of quiet humiliation wash over me. The tutors who stopped showing up to my lessons, the family dinners where I wasn't invited to sit at the main table, the whispered comments from relatives about poor Chen, and I absorbed every bit of it without a single crack in my expression. And on the day they finally cast me out, I walked through the gates of the Mo estate for the last time, carrying a suitcase that held nothing but clothes and a power that could have leveled the entire compound behind me in under a minute if I'd wanted it to. I didn't look back once. The city outside the Mo family's territory was called Rivergate, a mid-sized border settlement on the edge of the monster-infested wilderness, too small, too poor, and too geographically inconvenient to interest any of the great esper associations that governed the wealthier inland cities. It survived on the backs of a handful of underpowered local espers who fought off beast incursions with nothing but grit, second-hand gear, and stubbornness. I chose it for exactly that reason. Nobody here knew who I was. Nobody here would ever think to ask what I was capable of, because nobody here had the imagination for an S-class walking among them in worn-out boots. I rented a single cramped room above a noodle shop run by an old couple who never asked questions about my past, and I took the only kind of work available to someone with no registered affinity on file, sorting salvage at the outer wall depot, hauling crates of scavenged monster cores and scrap tech for wages that barely covered rent and instant noodles. The woman who ran the depot, everyone called her Granny Shu, though she couldn't have been older than 60. She had sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue, and she was the first person in years who looked at me like I was actually a person and not a line item. "You're stronger than you let on, boy," she said one evening about a month in, watching me haul a crate that should have needed 2 grown men and a hand truck. I'd forgotten to dampen my strength properly. Why hide it? I just gave her a tired smile and said nothing. Some habits, once you've spent 18 years building them, don't break easily. Suit yourself, she said, not pushing. She slid an extra bowl of noodles across the counter that night without charging me for it. Eat. You look like a strong wind could carry you off. That was Rivergate, I learned quickly. Rough around the edges, poor as dirt, but honest in a way the Mo estate had never once been. People here didn't care what tier you were registered at. They cared whether you showed up on time, whether you pulled your weight, whether you'd share your umbrella if it started raining on someone else's walk home. At night, after the depot closed and the streets went quiet except for the distant hum of the perimeter wall's aging defense grid, I trained. Not to grow stronger. An S-class core doesn't need much coaxing to grow on its own, but to learn control. Precision. The exact difference between a gesture that could crack a boulder and one that could crack a boulder without also leveling the 3 buildings behind it. I trained alone in an abandoned lot near the depot, under a sky too polluted by the city's outer lights to show many stars. I told myself I was preparing for nothing in particular, just discipline, just habit. I was wrong. I was preparing without knowing it for the night everything would change. 3 months passed like this. Quiet. Anonymous. Almost peaceful. In the way that only comes after you've stopped expecting anyone to hurt you. Then the tremor started. It began as a rumor passed between merchants at the depot's loading dock. A beast migration larger than anything Rivergate's records had logged in over a decade, moving in from the eastern ridge, weeks ahead of the usual seasonal pattern. Nobody could explain why it was early. Nobody wanted to. The city's Esper guild, all of maybe 20 registered fighters, most of them C-class and below, with a single grizzled B-class veteran holding the whole roster together, called an emergency meeting that same night. I wasn't invited. Why would I be? To the people who ran this city, I was just the quiet salvage worker who'd never bothered to register for classification testing, probably because he had nothing worth registering. But Granny Shu's grandson, a nervous kid named Wei who'd recently joined the guild as a junior fighter, came stumbling into the depot that night, pale as a corpse, still in his half-fastened gear. "It's not just a migration," he said, hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped the crate he'd been carrying. "There's a beast lord leading it. Confirmed sighting from the watchtower. A-class threat level, maybe higher. We don't have anyone who can even scratch something like that." Master Hao is already talking about a full evacuation. I kept sorting crates, my hands steady, my face carefully blank. On the outside, I didn't react at all. On the inside, something old and tired and long suppressed stirred awake. An A-class threat. My family, safe behind their reinforced estate walls 300 kilometers away, wouldn't even blink at a threat like that. They'd simply hire a strike team of contracted mercenaries and watch the whole thing unfold from a comfortable distance, treating it as a line item in next quarter's security budget. But Rivergate had nothing like that. No reinforced walls thick enough to hold against a true A-class assault. No fighter strong enough to even slow it down. Just ordinary, tired, decent people who had taken me in without asking a single question about what I was worth. I thought about walking away, about staying anonymous, letting the guild handle it the way I'd always handled being discarded. Quietly, without complaint, disappearing before anyone could ask more of me than I was willing to give. Then I thought about Granny Shu, who slipped me free noodles on nights she knew I couldn't afford to eat. About the old couple who ran the shop below my room, who'd never once asked why a well-spoken young man with clearly expensive childhood manners was sorting scrap for pennies. About an entire city of people who had, without knowing it, given me something my own blood family never had in 18 years. The basic decency of treating me like I mattered before they knew what I could do for them. I put down the crate I was carrying. The sound of it settling on the ground felt strangely final. "Tell the guild I want to help," I said. Wei laughed, not cruelly, just pure disbelief, the kind that comes from a mind that genuinely cannot process the words it just heard. "You? No offense, Chen, but you're not even registered. There's nothing you could possibly—" I let a fraction of my esper energy leak out. Just a fraction, barely a whisper of what I actually held. The crates stacked around us didn't just rattle. They lifted a full inch off the ground and hung there, suspended in a faint field of pale silver light, before I let them settle back down without a sound, without so much as a scratch on the wood. Wei didn't say another word. He just turned and ran, so fast he left one of his gloves behind. The guildmaster, a grizzled B-class veteran named Hao Feng, met me at the eastern gate less than an hour later, flanked by every fighter the city could spare. A nervous, exhausted, badly under-equipped collection of maybe 15 people who all looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. He looked me over, young, unremarkable, still dressed in salvage worker clothes with dust on the knees, with open, weary skepticism. "You're the one who moved Granny Shoe's crates with a thought," he said flatly, arms crossed. "We's not usually one to exaggerate, but I need to see it myself before I put a single one of my people's lives in your hands. Prove it's not some trick." I didn't argue. There wasn't time to. And honestly, after 3 years of hiding, some tired part of me almost welcomed the chance to stop pretending. I raised my hand toward the horizon, where the beast migration was already visible even from this distance. A dark, churning mass moving across the ridgeline like a living stain spreading across the landscape. And I let my aura out fully for the first time in 3 years. The temperature in the courtyard dropped several degrees in an instant. The ground trembled, not from any attack, just from the sheer raw pressure of an S-class core finally, after 3 years of careful suppression, being allowed to breathe freely. Several of the younger fighters dropped straight to their knees, unable to remain standing under the sudden weight of it, gasping like the air itself had turned heavy. Hao Feng, a battle-hardened B-class veteran who had faced down beast hordes for over a decade, went pale as ash and took an involuntary step backward, his hand instinctively going for a weapon he didn't even draw. "That's not possible," he whispered, staring at me like he was seeing a ghost. "A salvage worker from the outer depot. S-class. That's not a thing that just happens. Where did you even—" "I'll handle the Beast Lord," I said, cutting him off gently, letting my aura recede back to its usual quiet dormancy. "Get everyone else to fall back and fortify the inner wall. I don't want any of your people anywhere near the ridge when this starts." He didn't argue this time. He just nodded, still visibly shaken, and started barking orders to his fighters with a new urgency that had nothing to do with the beast threat and everything to do with the fact that the world he understood had just quietly rearranged itself in front of him. I walked out alone to meet a migration that should have taken an entire regional association's dedicated strike team to handle. The Beast Lord leading it was a corrupted mountain worm, easily 40 meters long, its scaled hide cracked with pulsing veins of dark, unstable energy, leading a horde numbering in the thousands. Lesser beasts driven half-mad by proximity to something so powerful, all funneling toward Rivergate's outer wall like a flood searching for the weakest point to break through. Any A-class fighter working alone would have been overwhelmed within minutes. Even a coordinated team of A-class fighters would have taken heavy losses. I wasn't just A-class. I never had been, not even close. My family had simply never bothered to find out. The worm's first strike came fast, a skull-crushing bite aimed to end the fight before it began. I met it head-on, catching the impact in a barrier of condensed esper energy that didn't even flex under the collision. The worm reared back, visibly confused. Nothing in its ancient predatory instincts had prepared it for a lone human who simply refused to yield, refused to break, refused to even stagger. I didn't waste time proving a point to a beast that couldn't appreciate one anyway. 3 years of disciplined, obsessive nighttime training in that empty lot had taught me exactly how much force was necessary and exactly how much was excess, the difference between crushing a threat and annihilating a landscape. I ended the fight in under 4 minutes, the same 4 minutes it had taken my family to end 18 years of my life. There was a certain grim symmetry to that I didn't miss. A single compressed pulse of esper energy shattered the worm's core from the inside out. Its massive body collapsed across the ridge with a sound like a mountain falling, and the leaderless horde scattered instantly, directionless and beaten, fleeing back into the wilderness in every direction. When I turned around, half of Rivergate had gathered at the gates behind the fortified line, watching in dead, stunned silence. Even the fighters who'd been ordered to retreat had disobeyed just enough to see the ending. Someone, of course, had been filming. Someone always is. By morning, the footage had already reached every major city terminal in the region. A single unregistered S-class esper single-handedly repelling a confirmed A-class beast lord and its horde to protect a city that wasn't even his own, that had never given him a title or a status or anything more than a small room above a noodle shop. Association analysts scrambled to identify me. Rival cities sent formal, urgent requests for meetings. The Regional Esper Council issued an emergency classification hearing, demanding my presence, offering incentives that would have made the old me, the one still hoping for his family's approval, weep with disbelief. And somewhere 300 kilometers away, in the marble halls of the Mo family estate, my father sat down to watch the evening news exactly as he did every night, and the teacup in his hand shattered against the floor. I know this happened because less than 12 hours later, an entire convoy of Mo family vehicles arrived at Rivergate's outer gates, kicking up dust on a road they'd never once considered worth paving toward. My father stepped out first, his usually composed businessman's face cracking with something caught between disbelief and desperate, calculating hope. My mother followed close behind him, her hands twisting together in a way I'd never once seen from her in 18 years of watching her carefully maintain perfect composure. And behind her, Mo Ling, the daughter they'd kept, the talented one, the one who'd never once had to fight for a seat at the family table, stepped out looking pale and genuinely uncertain, maybe for the first time in her entire life. Chen. My father's voice carried a warmth I had never once heard directed at me in 18 years, and it made my skin crawl. My son, there's clearly been a terrible misunderstanding. We should never have let you go. Come home. Your position as heir is waiting for you. It's yours, all of it, effective immediately. I looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Behind him, the entire convoy of family lawyers and assistants stood frozen, waiting to see how this would play out, probably already drafting the press release in their heads. Then I looked at my mother, who wouldn't quite meet my eyes even now. Then at my sister, who at least had the decency to look genuinely ashamed, shifting her weight from foot to foot like she wanted to be anywhere else on earth. There's no misunderstanding, I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. You told me I had no talent. You said, and I quote, that keeping me around was a waste of family resources. You said it clearly, in front of the entire family at that table in that room, and you meant every single word of it. I heard you the first time. I didn't mishear anything. Chen, we didn't know what you were capable of. That's exactly the problem, I said, cutting him off, my voice never rising, never cracking. You never wanted to know. You looked at a boy who couldn't produce a visible affinity on your precious testing equipment and decided right then that his entire worth ended there. You didn't see me. You saw a number on a readout, and when that number looked low, you threw the rest of me away without a second thought, without a single conversation, without ever once asking if there might be more to find. My father's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping at the corner of his mouth. We can fix this, whatever you need. The family's training facilities, our full resources, connections to any association you want. It's all yours now. Just come home, Chen, please. I almost laughed at that. Even now, faced with everything he'd lost in a single night, he was still trying to structure this as a negotiation, still trying to find the winning offer. I have a home, I said, and for the first time since walking out of that estate, I meant something with my whole chest. I looked past him toward Hao Feng and Granny Shu and a handful of Rivergate's fighters and shopkeepers who had quietly gathered near the gate, watching this whole exchange unfold with a mixture of awe and protective weariness, like they were ready to step in if this rich, powerful family tried to drag me away against my will. It's smaller than yours. It doesn't have marble floors or a family crest or a testing chamber in the basement. But it's the first place that ever treated me like I was worth something before anyone there knew what I could do. My father's carefully maintained composure finally cracked completely, something raw and desperate bleeding through. You would choose some nothing border town over your own blood, over your family's name? I already know exactly what my own blood is worth, I said quietly. You taught me that lesson yourself very clearly 3 months ago. I'm actually grateful for it now. It's the only honest thing you ever gave me. I turned and walked back through the gates of Rivergate, past the people who had never once asked what classification tier I was before deciding that I mattered. The Mo family convoy stood outside those gates for a long time, long enough for the sun to shift noticeably in the sky, before finally, quietly, driving away. My mother, I heard later from Wei, cried the entire way back. My sister didn't say a single word the whole drive. I felt nothing watching them go. Not triumph, not sadness. Just a quiet, settled peace, like a held breath finally released. In the weeks that followed, Rivergate's status changed almost overnight, from an ignored, resourceless border town scraping by on the edge of relevance, to a city under the direct, publicly known protection of a confirmed S-class esper, suddenly courted by associations that had never once spared it a passing glance before. Hao Feng was promoted to regional liaison, a role he took to with gruff, embarrassed pride. Granny Shu's little depot became something of a local landmark, visited by curious travelers hoping to catch a glimpse of the salvage yard S-class, much to her endless muttered irritation about tourists tracking mud through her loading dock. As for me, I didn't take a title. I didn't move into some grand estate the city council offered, practically begging me to accept it, along with a formal ceremony and a commemorative plaque. I kept my small room above the noodle shop. I kept sorting crates on the days I felt like it, mostly out of habit and stubbornness. I trained at night the same way I always had, not to prove anything to anyone watching anymore, but simply because it was mine. A discipline that belonged to no one but me. My family sent letters for months, formal ones from lawyers, softer ones that were clearly ghost-written attempts at reconciliation, and eventually a handful that looked genuinely handwritten, genuinely desperate. I never opened a single one. I kept them in a small box under my bed, not out of sentiment, but as a quiet reminder of exactly how much certain kinds of love are worth when they only arrive after the price tag becomes visible. Some inheritances aren't worth claiming. Some families don't deserve the power they failed to see standing right in front of them for 18 years. I found my worth on my own, in a small city that never once asked me to prove it first. And for the first time in my entire life, that worth had absolutely nothing to do with anyone else's approval. Not my father's, not the associations, not even my own past selves, the one who used to sit alone in a testing chamber and wonder if he'd ever be enough. He was always enough. He just needed a city small enough and honest enough to finally see it.